what are we so starved as empty nesters frequently? It's friendship and community. And if this is a vehicle to do that with each other and with others, holy crap,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
This is the Loud Quiet Living the Empty Nest. Hey guys, welcome back. We look a little different. This is episode 70. We're coming to you live, or well, not live, sorry.
Well, we're live.
We're live, yes. We're coming to you today from the Podfest. We're in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to talk a little bit about our experience for the past few days. This is the last day of us being here,
That's
so.
right. That's right.
So yeah,
Podfest Expo, Multimedia
Yes,
Expo,
here's-
the little logo down there. I'm
Mhm.
sure if you're on the video, you can see it. This was, we've talked about in the episodes a lot about saying yes. This is absolutely a saying yes.
Yeah.
We've never done a
in
conference
December,
together.
I think, is when we said yes to this.
Yeah.
It was very quick.
Yeah.
So,
And we haven't done anything other than like a marriage conference together. And this is an actual, honest to God, we are here as co-interested people, right? And I'm not the trailing spouse to you on a conference. You're not the trailing spouse to me in a conference. This is something we are doing together.
Yes, we are at a. I mean, I
You
guess
can hear
I
the
call,
energy in the
call
background
them,
too, right?
We are at a business, but the business of podcasting conference together. And yes, like you said, at some conferences, we've done conferences individually. And at some of those, you do kind of feel a little like, oh, I don't really know. A lot of this stuff, I feel a little imposterish. But this one, we both actually felt equally, yes, we should be here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing that up. I want to go deeper there, but first I want to do a little appreciation. And these are not official sponsors or anything like that, but I want to acknowledge Buzzsprout specifically. Buzzsprout is who hosts CX Passport, my other podcast, the business podcast that I have. And Buzzsprout offered free tickets for some folks to come here. And so Clancy and I are actually on Creator Pass tickets here thanks to Buzzsprout, and very appreciative of that. And if you can tell, we're not in our studio. We're not in some random place with our phone hooked up. This is actually the Unstuck. I'm looking at the logo behind the camera here, y'all. It's the Creators Unstuck Studios, brought to you by Ecamm and Shure. Ecamm is the software we're recording on right now, and Shure are the microphones that we're using here. And we're not.
So we might sound really nice and different on this one because we're using these microphones.
Hello, audience.
Yeah, which
and that's we're actually kind of testing these too, and so I just want to shout them out. It's not an official sponsor. Now, of course, if any of the three of y'all are listening and you'd like to become official sponsors, please reach out to theloudquietpod@gmail.com.
Yes.
But it's been fun. We're exhausted.
I mean, it has been. We got here Wednesday, and it has been. It is now Saturday. I feel like I've been at like camp. Although I will say
you said that.
But you know what I will say is that a lot of times you go to some of these things and there's forced things that you have to go to and you have to attend. This is not like that at all. You go to what you want to go to. If you need to go and chill for a while, go chill for a while. You control your destiny at this event. And we have chosen to do some things that, sorry, my ring hit the table, that we might not necessarily do, like late night karaoke, but it was fun. It was great. We met people. That's the other thing about this conference that is so different from anything that I've been to before. It's podcasters. What do? We all talk.
We talk.
And so
it's hard to do a podcast without talking, right?
Yes. Everyone is so friendly.
Yeah.
Talk to anybody. It's just been a neat experience. But yes, tons of information and draining at the same time, but energizing at the same time too.
And this is very much an improv kind of session. We sat down at the booth, decided to hit record, got ourselves set up. Thankful to all the names that we mentioned earlier. I want you and me to remember, we talked about coming here. We were planning it out last week, and we set goals for ourselves. And I think it'd be a good time to actually restate what those goals are and see if we accomplish them. So do you remember what you had said your goals were about coming to this conference?
No, I should have written them down, I guess. I think one of my main things, and I told you, I had no idea what to expect. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we as a couple have been in the podcasting world now for a little over a year
Mhm.
and a half. I just had no idea. I
Right.
didn't know if this was going to be just a bunch of
People are
I
listening,
don't know what
Clancy.
word
People are
I
listening.
don't know what word to use, but
You didn't know what
anyway,
you were walking into from a community
yes.
perspective at
And
all.
so I was just coming with the I'm dipping. Oh, that's what I said. I'm dipping my toes into this and I'll see how it is and just to learn some new things. And yes, I mean, it has gone above my
Yeah.
expectations. So, and what were you? I mean,
I
I think
would
we kind of had similar goals,
Yeah,
but
but if I can remember them here off the cuff, you're right, we should have written them down, but I
mm,
remember them being sort of the goals of 3, if you will. But I'm gonna mention them. I want to come back to the dipping the toe in because there's a tentativeness that comes with that sentence. The value of this conference is, and it's true of any conference, is not being tentative. You get what you put out.
hmm
You get out of a conference what you put
put into
into
it.
it. And I want to talk a little bit about that because even I imagine most folks listening or watching are not going to be podcasters. Some may be. There's still some truth to anything that you're doing that we have gotten very tangible results out of what
Yeah.
we have been doing here today.
Yeah. And hopefully it will benefit our listeners
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah, we want to talk
followers
about some of the things we're gonna
because
do.
we got a lot of
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
ideas and plans and just because this conference is solely focused on the podcast world, that's all you can really think about while
Right.
you're here and think about yours that you have together and or that we have together and what we want to do with it, how we
Yeah.
can make it better and everyone has been so generous with offering, "Oh, I'd love to help with this or reach out to me for this." And so, it it is like when Tegan at Summit would go to, which happens to be here as well in
Yeah.
Orlando.
Funny you mentioned
But
that.
I was thinking about the pens, they exchange pens here. People, we had business cards printed up, we've been handing out
A little
business
story to tell
cards
about business
and
cards. I
yeah,
want
yeah.
to tell that
Okay,
story.
yeah. Interject your I almost didn't have business cards to hand or
Yeah.
cards to hand out.
Po- Business cards not brought to you by a certain delivery service that we are not going to
Yeah.
mention. We actually had to generate business cards because they didn't get delivered. They were delayed by 5 days. We
There it
had
is.
to
If
design
you're
them
looking.
on the plane,
Mhm.
communicate via chat with Staples. So shout out to Staples. Boy, this is going to be brand heavy.
Yeah,
We've got
well,
to get
we
sponsors, but yeah,
got
chatted with the person on the Staples chat to say, hey, is there any way the store can get them done today? By the time we landed, the order was in the store and it was 30 minutes after we landed or something like that, that we had business cards. So
mm.
yeah, there's some things that you can do
I,
that,
and I did appreciate you doing that because I again it made me feel because we had done yours
right.
already because
Yeah.
we had done that to launch the new line of that business and I felt like well I don't have anything
Yeah.
and okay so let's talk about that a little bit talk about how you have a podcast we have one together let's talk about the feet like
Oh,
the
I absolutely, can I say my 3 goals though
yeah
first?
oh sorry
Can I
did
talk
we
about
not get
those?
to those oh
Um, and I'm going to try to remember that. But the first one was podcasting is so lonely. It can be such an isolating thing that I was looking forward to finding just a community, finding other people that were like to immerse in a world that helps reinforce that what you're doing is. Well, I think I used this word in the elevator just now, normalized, and it was about a specific part of the monetization around podcasting. The idea of this crazy thing that we sit in our studio pushing out weekly is something that there are thousands, and that's not an exaggeration, thousands of people here doing that. And so that was one goal. The second goal was understanding how to do it better, how to grow this, how to grow a community, because we had said that we were doing this for connectivity with ourselves. We also said we wanted to do the loud quiet as a way to build a community around empty nesters and learn from them, not just the things that we share and talk about the things that we've experienced, but there's empty nesters that are out there that are doing empty nest and we can learn from them. So how do we grow that community through the growth of the podcast? And then the third thing was just simply tactical. What are the nuts and bolts of podcasting? How can we get better at some of that?
Right.
And I have to say that on all three dimensions, absolutely blown out of the water that we have succeeded on all three of those. The last is probably the least, quote, interesting, if you will, to folks. But what was the session that we just got out of, or 2 sessions ago? Well, actually both. How to better light your podcast, design a studio, how to do the SEO around a podcast. Very tactical things that are just so easily consumable that people, can take courses on, and we get it just fire hosed in this week.
Yeah, it
Week.
is. It's
in these
I know
days.
we've
What
only
did I
been
just
here for a
say?
day. I know, although it does feel like we've been here for a week. By Thursday was a great day, and yes, we, like I said, did karaoke and stayed out late, and Friday. But like, yes, by last night, even if we hadn't gone to any of the sessions today, which were highly valuable again,
Yeah.
I had already gotten everything out and then some of just from Thursday and Friday. So, it was great. And the fact that we came in a day earlier before the conference really got going was nice, because then we had a chance on a smaller scale to meet some people.
It was a little more intimate, right? I think the numbers they described was around 200 to 300 people here, as opposed to the 1,000 plus that are here now on Saturday. You were starting to ask me about, the not surprise, but we were talking about generating the business cards, right? And I think I have to say that I expected to come here and focus more on CX Passport, because that's where our business opportunity is with CX Passport Live. Very quickly, it became apparent that this was going to be much more focused on the loud quiet, because of the ongoing absolute positive reinforcement that we heard from folks of, oh my gosh, we need that out in the community. I haven't heard of one of those. We need to do some of that. And sorry, listeners and viewers, to kind of toot a horn, but yeah, we feel that way, that there is a gap here in that aspect of it. In that vein, what I have loved is the ungodly variety of podcasts here. It is amazing when you just run into somebody like, okay, so hey, Jaime Shmabobo, tell me about your podcast. Whoa, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting ones, and some that, like in the last session we were just in, so someone is in there that does one, and I actually know about that, and and I'm gonna go back, and I've actually heard some of the snippets from it, I think, already, or I've seen it somewhere. It's popped up in my feed, and so now I was like, oh, I'll have to go back and listen.
What's the name of the podcast?
Relatively Famous.
Yeah, and so if we remember, so I'll get that in the show notes for y'all to click over and look at Relatively Famous. The idea behind it is, since you've listened to it.
Well, it's Vanna White's brother who started this, so it's basically about when you're adjacent to a celebrity, and he interviews the siblings, relative, just it's interesting.
Yeah.
So.
And
Interesting
okay, so
concept.
take that. Let's use that as an example of kind of the community part of it. That's the kind of person, when mentioned, oh, that's Vanna White's brother. It was just, we were in some session. I wasn't talking to him. And somebody mentions that, and you can get maybe the impression of, oh, that's somebody that's famous. They're going to be standoffish. They're going to be, and there's other people here that have a little bit of notoriety to them. There's we'll talk about him, a TikTok star, let's just use that word. And not a single person has been standoffish when you decide to reach out, shake a hand, and say hi to them.
Yeah.
It was Chip was his name, and we were glad to just have a conversation. And he was so helpful in encouraging us in our podcast. We found that he's from a certain part of the country that we know well, and all that goes into that. The relationships and the warmth here have been, I don't want to say surprising, because we were told to be that way. It was refreshing to be rewarded with that type of friendliness here.
Yeah. And I do think us being able to do this together, because our podcast is together, that helped too, because as you have gotten older and matured in your career, you're fine with just going up and talking to someone.
Absolutely right.
I am okay with that. I'm not as well versed in it as you are. So it was nice to be here together so we could bounce off of each other and I could have your support with
Mhm.
that. But
Can I ask you a question
oh,
about
well,
that? Or
no,
were
I
you going
wanted to
somewhere?
ask you a question though.
Uh-oh.
No,
Rock, paper,
I know I
scissors?
never really, sometimes I don't get to ask you questions. So going back to, because like you said, what we've learned from this or taken out of this conference is that, well, yes, we're still totally invested in the other business that we have launched. We've now seen that this podcast that we do is going to be the one that we really want to focus
Mhm,
on,
mhm.
put the money, the effort into more than we
Right.
have been. So, how does that make you feel?
Refreshed.
Okay.
And I didn't think of that word. That was a very improv. I didn't plan that. Well, one, I didn't know what you were going to ask, so
Yeah.
it definitely was improv. Refreshed, because I enjoy being with you. I enjoy, let's call this working with you, although it's a conversation. I enjoy having a conversation with you. I enjoy that part of our life. And if that's what we get to double, triple, quadruple down on our interest, our focus, yeah, it's actually kind of refreshing because a business podcast, well, isn't as exciting. I have met some amazing people
Oh,
from
yeah.
around the globe. It truly, if I go to Uganda or if I go to Ghana or if I go to Ukraine or if I go to insert country here, there's someone I know and there's someone that's friendly enough that would be willing to host us and bring us into their home and all that. That part's been great. But let's be honest, it's a business podcast. And as valuable as it's been and the conversations fun as they are, it's not the same as doing this with you. And the excitement that I have, sorry to,
No, 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 you're
of,
good.
of the excitement of the opportunity to build a community beyond you and me.
Yeah.
Because what are we so starved as empty nesters frequently? It's friendship and community. And if this is a vehicle to do that with each other and with others, holy crap,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, and to bring up your point, the business podcast, which your business podcast has done great, that's only reachable to business people and specifically in the business area that you're
Yeah,
in,
it's niche.
whereas empty nesters are everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
it doesn't matter. It spans all over everything.
yeah,
So,
God willing, anyone that has a child will experience being empty
no,
nesters.
yeah. So
Yeah, that part is, and I'm excited about it. And you know what I'm also excited about it, and we do need to certainly dedicate some time to the show to talk about some of the ideas that we have. I'm not going to say everything, but some of the things that are out there. I want to ask the question that I was going to ask you. And it's kind of, this is very non-linear. And guess what? That's what happens when you're living the empty nest life. It's not always very linear. And so sometimes we're going to go in directions. You were starting to say that, yes, I've been doing events and I've a place in my career that I'll go up and say hi to folks and that kind of stuff. You said you weren't necessarily as, I don't want to use the word comfortable, but that just wasn't something you'd had a ton doing. You arrived here Wednesday, today's Saturday. Would you say that that is have you increased in your comfort level in that? Did you see yourself here at this conference actually changing the way you approach that?
no. Here's what I will say.
Well, if you wanted to know if we're honest on this podcast, there you go. There's some truth for you.
I will say I'm a very outgoing person. I
Right.
don't have a problem talking to someone. I have become, as I think, as I've gotten older and more, well, it's probably not more mature, but I'm just a little more selective, I think. And it's not intentionally, I don't think, all the time. Wednesday, that comfort level was like, okay, do it. Thursday, I talked to a ton of people. I think by yesterday, and even Thursday, when you had something to go to that I wasn't going to,
Right.
I just went and sat over in the bar area just by myself. I just needed some quiet because it is very high energy, like we said here. Um, but it's not crazy high energy. Like that is one thing that I do appreciate it again about this conference. It's not like loud music playing everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do appreciate
Or
that.
those you started saying, or those even, and I'm sorry, folks, if you're listening to this, if this is your style, it for those for whom it works, great. But those forced activity, you
That
alluded to
yes,
that,
yeah,
that let's get up and dance or that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing.
No, no.
No, the keynote, you know what they had? They had an incredibly impressive violinist, fiddler, um, who blew us away with high energy that we consumed. It made us, cheer and happy and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't, all right, everybody get up and hug your neighbor.
Yeah, yeah, no. But I think, and by yesterday evening, I think I had hit my limit. We were gonna go to something last night, and I was like, I can't. I needed to go to sleep. I needed I needed rest, and
So
so
I was listening to a podcast this morning, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of it, but it's a daily podcast about podcasts, and I'll get it in the show notes if folks want to listen to it. But it was doing a recap of here because the guy who does it is here, Mark Ronick, and he was talking about exactly that. That even he being involved in this and being a key person here, he recognized this year he understood boundaries. And someone asked, well, did you have any FOMO of not going to, it was karaoke
oh,
specifically?
uh-huh.
And he's like, no,
No.
I don't, because I needed that time. I needed that boundary for myself. And I
Mm.
think that's a lesson that isn't conference specific, but it is that idea of boundaries and taking
Yeah.
that rest for yourself. And whatever that is, whether it's an event, whether it's a life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a whatever,
Yeah.
being able to sort of take care of yourself
Yeah.
as
I,
well.
I think just and also adding on just time, we went up into our room last night just for a few minutes before we went to dinner, and just having that time together for us to just brainstorm and talk about some of the things that we're hoping to be bringing to y'all.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how much,
I
I
want to
don't
talk
know
about
what
that
we
a
want to
little bit.
say. Yeah, let's talk that up because we probably need to wrap up
We're
pretty
getting close to
soon.
that.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing, and I want to talk about. We've kind of alluded to it, but I have to reemphasize this point, and it is the power of yes. And I know we just talked about the power of no, but I'm going to say the power of yes was so important. It is in my interest, but it is out of my comfort level to sing karaoke. It is not
And
in
he
my
did a
interest.
very good job.
What's that? I
See,
want to hear that a
yeah,
little
he did a
louder.
very good job. We might put a little clip of it.
I bet we'd violate all sorts of copyright
Oh,
laws,
well,
but
maybe only did a
you know
tiny,
what?
tiny
No,
bit.
I'll just make sure that it's on mute or something like that. But yes, Margaritaville, for those that want to do karaoke, is a phenomenal range for non-high singers. But saying yes to that, and I've had many people come up to me and say, "Oh, hey, you were on stage," and they don't know me, but it was just being visible there. You being willing, as we were sitting there, to say yes to talking to those two young women that were at the table behind you, created a connection and a relationship, which a lot of times when we're at a loud bar, we're just kind of sitting by
Mm,
ourselves, kind of
yeah.
just we're enjoying our own company. That's saying yes to going out of what you might be interested in into out of your comfort zone.
Well, and I thought it was funny because, this was a bar that was away from the hotel,
Yeah.
but they all still had on their tags. We took ours
We
off.
took ours off. We
We're
thought,
like,
oh,
I'm
I'm not
not
gonna wear
wearing
that.
that. So,
Next year we'll remember to wear the tags.
yeah. So yeah, and that is, we have already bought one ticket, and then we'll hopefully get
There's
another
going
one
to be
through
some
Best
others
Route,
that
or
will
we
attend as
will
well, for
add a
sure.
ticket. But yes, we've already planned to come back. We've
Yeah.
already been invited to another one in June that we
Yeah.
will probably go to. So yeah, but let's talk about. And again, I don't know. We didn't really talk about what we were going to talk about
Well, I think we can
about
talk about
what's
it kind of
coming up.
in general terms, and that is, and this is listeners, viewers, I want y'all to hear this because this is going to involve y'all. It's a recognition that the community is it's not about growing the podcast, it's about growing the community. And we've alluded to it, but we've been given some really practical and specific ways to engage better with y'all, for y'all to be able to share your thoughts with us. And forget about share thoughts, just engage, and
Mm.
you get to feel a part of a community. Not that this is some sort of thing served at you. This is something that you will be a part of and creating
Mhm.
together. It's a with, not an
Yeah,
at.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's very well said. I don't think we want to divulge the things that we have in
Oh no,
our
little
that will
secret.
be coming up. But
We also have we also are quite aware that there's a lot of things and needs and desires and products that empty nesters, seek, and so we're looking to kind of help curate that for everyone and help that understand. And I'm not talking about influencer or anything, that kind of stuff, but
hmm,
just helping folks be aware of some of the great things that are out there for empty nesters that we're getting exposed to, and we want to make sure our community knows about them as well.
yeah, yeah,
This is such, y'all can hear the energy, and I love the
yeah.
energy here. We've never done anything live or
mm,
in front of an audience.
hmm.
Yeah, in front of an audience. There's folks that are watching here. That's kind of cool. This is such a dorky question, but what is one thing that you're walking away from this conference with?
I don't think that's a dorky question, but
Well, it's an impossible
oh
question. How about
yes, I
that?
know. Okay, well, I have 2 T-shirts.
Oh, I
So
like
that
the practical answer. Oh, that's
oh,
good.
and some pens. That was one thing I did say. That was one of my goals was to get pens, like writing pens,
You did.
because conferences always have the best
Oh, I
writing
wish I could remember his name so I could shout him out. Yes, thank you for the PINS law agency that
pens.
helped
so
me understand the
so
pitfalls of.
I have 2 T-shirts. Oh, and a swag and a little drawstring bag, which
That's
now
right.
I'm going to use for my new gym and pen. But no, I mean the wealth of knowledge we talked about has
Yeah,
just been incredible. So
yeah, yeah. It's been
and a
fantastic.
couple of contacts that we made are we will be putting to use, and they have been just
The
amazing.
generosity of people to offer up their information also shows you some people that you want to do business with
Well, and I'm
and
not.
learn
You're
from.
right. I'm not even talking about just
That's what
the
I'm talking about. Is they
yeah,
were so generous. You're like, wait, I need to know more,
yeah,
and getting into commercial
hmm,
relationships with folks
yeah,
is going to be good. And I think that if to answer my own question back at me, it's relationships. Yes, I actually kind of like the two T-shirts that we got. I love the Buzzsprout leather keychains that I got printed. I love the little buttons here. This says
oh
100 but
yes,
200 episodes, 10,000 downloads, 4 years. Like that's exciting stuff. I love all
mm,
that. The What I really do like is that relationship. Is there are people now that I am not just aware of, but comfortable reaching out to them and having an authentic conversation with. And hopefully some of those you'll actually hear as guests on this show at some
mm.
point.
And I will say too, if you're ever looking for a conference space, the Renaissance Orlando by SeaWorld, it, it's an incredible conference space. I think the way it's laid out, there's a million restrooms. There's that.
Huge.
Yes, the
Because the
bat.
one in
Yes,
Austin that I went to, potties were hard to come
no.
by even as a guy.
This one, the layout is very, very
Yeah.
good.
And
So
again,
there, I'll just give a
not
plug to
brought to you by
Renaissance.
Renaissance at SeaWorld. You want to talk about something we're going to get better at?
Oh.
Is that so? Yeah, click our affiliate marketing link and this was fun to do this in our little house here. This has to be one of the more delightful episodes that we've recorded. I've certainly enjoyed doing another episode of The Loud Quiet,
Living
Living
the
the Empty
Empty
Nest.
Nest.